My name is Emma, and on some summer mornings I still dream about the faint scent of butter sizzling on a hot pan, a smell that carries the warmth of a love long lost, a smell that reminds me of the first man I ever loved, my father. He used to make pancakes every Sunday, cutting them into smiley faces, drizzling syrup, and whispering that I was the sweetest little princess in the world. His words were a crown, making me feel cherished. I was only 7 years old when everything fell apart in a matter of seconds. That day was a fracture, shattering my world. That day, my father was standing by the stove, flipping a spatula like a juggler. My mother was humming along to the old radio playing in the background. Everything seemed perfect, until the sound of metal hitting the floor startled me. The clatter was a warning heralding tragedy. The spatula slipped from my father's hand, and he clutched his chest, his eyes wide with panic. His collapse was a storm, sweeping away our peace. I screamed, but my voice seemed to disappear into nothingness. My cry was a whisper, lost in chaos. The ambulance came, lights flashing through the quiet neighborhood. I remember sitting curled up on the couch, clutching my tattered teddy bear while the neighbors peeked through the windows with pity in their eyes. Their pity was a weight pressing on my heart. My father never came back from the hospital. A heart attack. Sudden. No goodbyes. His absence was a void, chilling our home. After the funeral, the house felt too big, too cold. The cold was a ghost haunting our lives. My mother didn't cry for long. Just a few months later, she started attending widow support meetings at the local church. Her recovery was swift, leaving me behind. That's where she met Robert. Robert was tall, slender, with neatly combed gray hair and glasses that always sat low on his nose. He was a stranger, stepping into our broken world. He never tried to replace my father. He was polite, gentle, and always asked me how my day at school was. His kindness was a flicker, trying to warm the chill. I was 8, and I tried to learn to call him Dad Robert, as my mother suggested, though the words never felt natural on my tongue. The title was a mask, ill-fitting on my lips. A year later, my mother announced she was pregnant. The news was a shift, tilting our universe. I didn't fully understand what that meant until a pale green crib appeared in the spare room, and a wrinkly baby boy named Ethan became the center of the universe. Ethan was a star, drawing all light to him. By the time I was 9, everything had changed. The change was a tide, washing me away. Dinner conversations were no longer about my school day, but about Ethan's cries, diaper changes, and vaccination schedules. His needs were a spotlight, leaving me in shadow. Once I tried to tell my mom about a science project that got chosen for the school fair, but she just nodded absently, her eyes fixed on Ethan crawling across the floor. Her nod was a dismissal, ignoring my spark. "Ethan needs me," she would say whenever I asked for a moment of her time. Her excuse was a wall, shutting me out. At first I tried to understand. I was young, but not stupid. I knew babies needed more care. I rationalized her neglect, clinging to hope. I kept telling myself things would go back to normal once Ethan grew up a bit. But year after year I realized I was being erased from the family picture. The erasure was a wound. Bleeding silence of day pancakes became a thing of the past. My mom often forgot to make breakfast for me, then hurriedly apologized, saying, "I'm so sorry, sweetie. Ethan had a fever all night." Her apologies were hollow, masking her neglect. I said nothing. I swallowed the hunger and the hurt and started making my own breakfast with a bowl of cold cereal. My silence was a shield, hiding my pain. With each passing day, he'd look at me with guilty eyes, but never stepped in. His guilt was a flicker, too weak to act. Once he timidly placed a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "Emma, sometimes adults forget that other kids still need love too." His words were a lifeline, but fleeting. I nodded, but inside I wanted to scream. I'm still her daughter. I was once her whole world. Why did everything disappear, just because Ethan showed up? The scream was trapped, echoing in my heart. I never said any of that. I just quietly faded away bit by bit in a house that once felt like home. My fading was a ghost, vanishing unnoticed. No one noticed. The whole is part. The silence was a void, swallowing my existence. When I was 10, my mom quit her job at the middle school where she had taught for nearly a decade. Her resignation was a surrender, abandoning me. She told the neighbors, "The early years are so important for a child. Ethan needed her around to grow up, right?" Her excuse was a banner waving for Ethan, but I knew better than anyone. She wasn't quitting her job. She was quitting being my mom. Her choice was a betrayal, choosing Ethan over me. Every morning she was busy with Ethan, checking bathwater temperatures, choosing his outfits, wiping off tiny specks of spit up from his onesies. Her attention was a crown, placed on Ethan's head. And me? I'd tie my own hair into a crooked ponytail in the mirror, shove a dry piece of toast into my backpack, and slip out the door. My routine was a shadow, unseen by her. No one asked if I had breakfast. No one checked to see if I was okay. Their neglect was a tide pulling me under. Robert, my stepfather in name only, was the only one who noticed. His notice was a spark, lighting my darkness. He started driving me to school each morning. He didn't say much, but he always stopped by the bakery near my school and let me pick out a muffin. His gesture was a gift, nourishing my soul. He was also the only one who remembered my birthday without a Facebook reminder. His memory was a treasure, marking my worth often. My mom didn't notice. She was lying beside Ethan, gently patting his back while I shivered under a damp blanket. Her absence was a wound, chilling my heart. Robert was the one who came in, felt my forehead, and rushed to find fever medicine. He stayed up all night placing cool cloths on my head. His care was a shield, protecting me from despair. The next morning my mom glanced at me and shrugged. "You probably just didn't wear enough layers." Her shrug was a dismissal, ignoring my pain. I didn't ask for much, just for her to look at me the way she looked at Ethan. I craved her gaze, a warmth I'd lost. But that never happened. Her indifference was a wall, unyielding. When Ethan learned to crawl, the whole house was decorated with green balloons. His milestone was a festival, celebrated by all. When I got an A in science, my mom said, "Good job," then asked Robert if Ethan had finished his milk. Her praise was a crumb, tossed carelessly. I tried not to be jealous. I really did. Jealousy was a poison, but I resisted its sting. But it became clearer every day. The truth was a mirror, reflecting my exclusion. When I was 11, Robert suggested I take an art class after school. His suggestion was a lifeline, offering me a voice. I excitedly brought home my first paintings, bursting with color and energy. My art was a cry, seeking her pride. I imagined my mom would stick them on the fridge like the moms did in movies. But she just glanced at them and said, "You should focus on math. Drawing won't get you anywhere." Her dismissal was a blade, cutting my creativity. Ethan, on the other hand, was different. When he scribbled some crayon lines on the wall, my mom looked at it like it was a Renaissance masterpiece. His scribbles were a treasure, hers to cherish. "He's so creative. Maybe he'll be an artist one day," she exclaimed, oblivious to me, kneeling on the floor, scrubbing off the mess with a wet cloth. My labor was invisible, her praise reserved for him. Ethan grew older, he became more spoiled. His entitlement was a crown, placed by her indulgence. He never had to clean up after himself or apologize for anything. His freedom was a privilege, granted without question. Even when he spilled milk all over the floor, my mom just smiled sweetly and turned to me. "Emma, can you wipe that up for me? I'm busy with Ethan." Her request was a chain, binding me to service, those words repeated so often that I could hear them even in my dreams. They were a mantra, echoing my role. Robert tried to balance everything, but he wasn't strong enough to fight the growing favoritism. His efforts were a flicker, too weak to shift the tide. He took me to karate classes every Tuesday and Thursday night. The classes were my refuge where I found strength. He sat through the entire session, cheering me on through every drill. His cheers were a beacon, lighting my path. Once, when I earned my first yellow belt, he stood up and clapped as if I had just won an Olympic medal. His pride was a gift, filling my heart. They saw the sparkle in his eyes, the kind of look I had always hoped to see from my mom. That sparkle was a mirror, reflecting my worth. I never once saw my mom attend a single practice. Her absence was a void, marking her neglect. One Saturday afternoon, I was doing homework when my mom walked into my room holding a stack of baby clothes. Her intrusion was a reminder of my secondary place. "Ethan spilled chocolate milk on the playroom carpet. Go clean it up for me," she said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Her command was a weight, pressing me down. I gripped the pencil tightly in my hand. "I'm doing homework. Ethan can clean it up himself." My defiance was a spark, igniting my resolve. My mother's face darkened. "Don't argue. He's only 6 years old. You're older. You should help your brother." Her rebuke was a gavel, dismissing my protest. I wanted to scream. I was 6 once too. But no one cleaned up after me. The scream was trapped, burning in my chest. But instead of shouting, I just stood up quietly, grabbed the rag, and walked away. My silence was a habit ingrained by years of neglect. It was like a habit ingrained in me, as if I wasn't a daughter but a silent, invisible helper in this house. My role was a shadow, cast by their favoritism. That night, as Robert was fixing a loose drawer in my room, I whispered, "If I disappeared, would Mom even notice?" My question was a wound, bleeding truth. He stopped working, looked at me. Then he said slowly, "Your mom is caught up in a dream she calls ideal Emma, but you're not invisible. At least not to me." His words were a lifeline anchoring my heart. I turned away, swallowing the lump in my throat. The lump was grief for the love I'd lost. I didn't need the whole world. I just needed one person to really see me. One was enough to keep me going. I was 14 when arguments in the house became more common than family dinners. The arguments were storms, shaking our fragile peace. At first, it was just small conversations, gentle suggestions from Robert to my mom. His suggestions were seeds trying to grow fairness. But over time, his voice grew heavier, and my mom's eyes became colder whenever he brought up Ethan. Her coldness was a wall, blocking his pleas. I still remember one time when Ethan spilled an entire bowl of soup on the carpet and then ran off to play video games. His carelessness was a privilege, unchecked by her. Robert set the rag down on the table, letting out a heavy sigh. "Ethan needs to learn responsibility. You can't keep running after him, cleaning up his messes forever, Laura." My mom's head shot up, eyes blazing as if Robert had just insulted the most sacred thing in her life. Her fury was a fire, burning for Ethan. "You think I'm spoiling him?" Her question was a shield, defending her bias. Robert nodded slowly but firmly. "I'm not saying you don't love him. I'm just saying there are 2 kids in this house. One is being loved so much it's suffocating, and the other is left to breathe on her own." His words were a mirror, reflecting the truth. My mom stood up, her face flushed red. "So, you're taking Emma's side, huh? You're always siding with her. Have you ever considered that Ethan is more sensitive and needs more protection?" Her defense was a fortress, built for Ethan. I sat quietly in the corner of the kitchen, gripping my biology book as if it could shield me from the storm brewing between the only 2 adults I had. The book was my refuge, a shield against their conflict. The arguments didn't stop. They kept coming back in every possible version. The conflicts were a cycle, trapping us in discord. Ethan not having to do the dishes, me being asked to do a pile of chores while studying for finals. The imbalance was a weight, crushing my spirit. Every time Robert spoke up, my mom retaliated with defenses that wrapped Ethan in an impenetrable shield. "He's just a kid. You're asking too much." Her excuses were a mantra, excusing his flaws. As for me, even though I was old enough to speak up for myself, I chose silence. Silence was my armor, protecting my harps. I poured all my energy into studying. Studying was my escape, a door to a new world. I studied as if it were the only way to prove that I deserved to be seen. Each page was a step toward my worth. I spent hours in the library taking meticulous notes, solving every difficult math problem as if they were the keys to another world. The library was my sanctuary, where I could shine. A world where I wasn't asked to skip breakfast because my brother woke up late. A world where people called me by my name and not just his sister. That world was my dream. A place of recognition. Robert was the only one who noticed how hard I was trying. His notice was a beacon guiding my efforts. He bought me a second-hand laptop for schoolwork, something my mom called an unnecessary luxury. The laptop was a tool, empowering my dreams. He took me to college orientation sessions at the high school, letting me sit in the front row, taking notes in a little notebook. His support was a foundation. Building my future, I began to dream of attending Northeastern University in Boston. The dream was a star guiding my path, not too far to completely sever ties, but far enough to finally breathe like an independent person. Distance was my freedom. A chance to be Emma. When I shared that dream with Robert, I saw a look of pride in his eyes that I had never seen from my mom. His pride was a gift, filling my heart. "You are being ridiculous," my mom said when she heard about my goal. "College, the cost. You know, this family still has Ethan and his future needs to come first." Her dismissal was a chain, trying to bind me. Robert didn't say anything then, but the next morning he called me into his office. On the desk was a stack of scholarship applications and a small savings book. The papers were a lifeline, offering hope. "I've been putting some money away for a while," he said softly. "Originally, it was to fix the front porch, but now I think there's something more worthwhile to invest in." His investment was in me, a vote of confidence. I looked at him, my throat tight. I don't know what to say. My gratitude was a knot, tying us closer. "You don't have to say anything," he smiled. "Just don't give up." His smile was a promise, urging me forward. That night, when my mom found out Robert was planning to use his savings to help me with college, she was angrier than I had ever seen her. Her anger was a storm raging against fairness. "You're throwing everything away for an ungrateful girl." "What about Ethan?" Her question was a shield, protecting Ethan's privilege. Robert didn't react harshly. He just placed a hand on my shoulder, a silent but firm gesture of protection. His touch was a fortress, guarding me. "This girl grew up on her own in this house, and I won't leave her alone anymore." His stand was a vow, pledging his support. I couldn't sleep that night. Not because of the argument, but because for the first time in my life, someone was truly standing up for me. His defense was a beacon, lighting my path. That trust was my fuel, driving me forward. I got into Northeastern University at 18 with a partial scholarship and the quiet support from Robert. The acceptance was a key, unlocking my future. That was the day I left the house I once thought was a home and never looked back the same way again. My departure was a rebirth, stepping into my own light. College life wasn't easy, but at least I could breathe. Freedom was air, filling my lungs. No one asked me to clean up after anyone. No one compared me to an overindulged child. I was unshackled, free to be Emma. I majored in business administration, juggling classes, a part-time job at the library, and later a research assistant position for a senior professor. Each role was a brick, building my foundation. Every dollar I earned, I tracked carefully, saving up for the future I always knew I'd have to build for myself. My savings were a shield, securing my independence. Ethan was different. Throughout my 4 years in college, he didn't study, didn't work, and didn't leave his gaming chair. His stagnation was a mirror, reflecting their indulgence. Every time I called home, my mom always started the conversation with, "Ethan is going through a tough time." Her excuse was a mantra justifying his failures. Ethan's tough time consisted of not waking up before noon, refusing to apply for jobs due to mental stress, and surviving on delivery food. His lifestyle was a privilege funded by her denial. Robert kept in touch with me regularly. His calls were a lifeline, connecting me to care. Each time he called, I'd hear a new story about my mom, how she sold his car to cover debts, how Ethan demanded a $1,000 0-cents gaming chair, how the house now reeked of smoke from Ethan's creative hangouts with his friends. The stories were a warning of a family unraveling. I asked Robert why he stayed. He just fell silent and then said, "Because I promised you I wouldn't leave you alone. But now I'm starting to feel helpless too, Emma." His confession was a crack, revealing his strain. A week after I graduated, I received a text from Aunt Ellen. "Robert's in the hospital."
Serious. Don't wait.
The message was a bolt, striking my heart. I caught the first train home, my heart pounding. The journey was a race against time. By the time I reached the hospital, it was too late. Robert was gone. A heart attack. Right at the construction site he was overseeing, his death was a void, stealing my anchor. His face was a memory, etched in my soul. I held his hand, now cold, and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." My whisper was a farewell, honoring his love. Robert's funeral took place on a gray, rainy day. The rain was a shroud, mourning his loss. My mother wore her old black dress, sobbing in front of the crowd as if they had been the perfect family. Her tears were a performance, masking her truth. But I knew every tear was for unpaid bills, for savings that were now gone, and for the harsh reality that the only breadwinner in the house was no longer there. Her grief was a facade, hiding her fears. Ethan showed up in an old hoodie, ripped jeans, and headphones still draped around his neck. His appearance was a mockery, disrespecting Robert's memory. Throughout the entire service, he stared at his phone, occasionally smirking at some text. His smirk was a dagger piercing my heart. I wanted to be angry, but instead, I felt a different kind of cold. The cold was clarity, revealing my truth. Not from the weather, but from the realization I was truly standing between two worlds. The world Robert had shown me as an escape, and the world my mom and Ethan still drowned in, clinging to their illusions. The divide was a chasm, separating my future from their past. After the funeral, I didn't return to my mom's house. My choice was a boundary, protecting my peace. I went back to Boston and threw myself into work. Work was my refuge where I could rebuild. I started as a junior financial consultant, earning just enough to get by, but at least it was stable. Stability was my foundation, grounding my new life. A year later, I was promoted. The promotion was a step toward my dreams. I rented a small apartment, decorated every corner with my own taste, a taste that grew from the old box of colors and drawings my mom once dismissed. The apartment was my canvas, painted with my identity. The call from my mom came on a Tuesday night, just as I was about to cook my first non-instant noodle meal of the week. Her call was a storm, threatening my peace. "Emma, I need you to come home. We're struggling." Her plea was a hook, pulling at my heart. I stood there in the kitchen. The pot of water bubbled quietly while my mind replayed every time my mom turned away, every time Ethan destroyed something and I had to clean it up, every time I was blamed instead of being cared for. The memories were a weight, anchoring my resolve. "What kind of struggle?" I asked, my voice unsettlingly calm. "Ethan still hasn't found a job. The house needs repairs. The bills are piling up. I don't know how to keep up anymore." Her list was a burden placed on my shoulders. "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up. My response was a shield guarding my heart. I didn't call back right away. 2 days passed, and then my mom texted, then emailed, then video called unexpectedly at 7:00 in the morning. Her persistence was a siege, testing my boundaries. In the frame was her gaunt face, sunken eyes, and a hoarse voice. "Emma, I don't know who else to turn to. Just $2,000, 0 cents a month, that's all. I swear it's only temporary, just until Ethan gets back on his feet." Her request was a chain, trying to bind me. I looked around my neat little apartment at the financial plan I had meticulously mapped out on my laptop, the car I was saving to replace, the Vermont trip I'd dreamed about for 2 years, the savings from my first condo in my own name. My plans were a canvas painted with my dreams. All of it suddenly felt like luxuries in the wake of that call. Guilt was a shadow, creeping in. Then I nodded. "Just for now, okay?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. My agreement was a concession, born of lingering hope. I set up a recurring transfer. Each month, $2,000, 0 cents, vanished from my account as if it had never existed, and I slipped back into the life of frugal meals, canceled gym memberships, and holding off on new furniture. The sacrifice was a weight, pulling me back, all because a part of me still held on to the hope that my mom truly needed it. Hope was a thread, fragile but persistent. A month later, I decided to visit. The visit was a test, seeking the truth. I brought a basket of groceries, a few small gifts, and a fragile sense of relief knowing I was helping. My gifts were a gesture, hoping for connection. But I didn't expect the person who opened the door to be my mom. Instead, it was a girl with bright highlighted hair, nails longer than drinking straws, chewing gum, and looking at me like I was the one who didn't belong. Her presence was a shock, a stranger in my past. "Who are you?" I asked, my hand still on the doorknob. My question was a challenge, seeking her place. She exhaled, clearly annoyed. "I'm Sophie, Ethan's girlfriend. I live here." Her claim was a theft, invading my family. "You're Emma, right?" Her recognition was a jab, casual and dismissive. "Ethan's mom told me about you." The phrase was a womb, renaming my mother. I raised an eyebrow. "You mean my mom?" Correction was a reclaiming, asserting my place. "Yeah, well, she kind of treats me like a daughter now. Come in if you brought food." Her words were a slap, replacing me. The house was a mess, like a college dorm gone rogue. Pizza boxes under the couch, soda cans scattered everywhere, and Sophie, completely unbothered, sat with her legs up on the chair, holding the TV remote like she owned the place. The chaos was a mirror, reflecting their decline. Mom walked in from the kitchen, her face lighting up when she saw me, but her eyes quickly darted to the basket. Her glance was a signal, valuing my gifts over me. "What did you bring?" Her question was a demand, ignoring my presence. I set the bag down on the table. "Some groceries, a few essentials." "Mom, who is this?" My question was a probe, seeking truth. Mom gave a dismissive laugh. "Oh, Sophie is such a sweetheart. She takes care of Ethan so well. They've been living together for a few months now, like husband and wife." Her praise was a crown placed on Sophie's head. I looked over at Sophie, who was casually opening the expensive cookies I'd brought. She licked her fingers and said, without even looking at me, "You should have bought the low-sugar kind. I'm watching my figure." Her comment was a jab, belittling my effort. I wanted to ask where Ethan was, but then I heard the blaring sound of a video game from the next room. The door was shut, only lights flashing behind the curtains. The noise was a barrier, keeping Ethan distant. Everything in me sank. The realization was a weight, crushing my hope. That night, it was just me, Mom, and Sophie at dinner. Ethan never came out of his room. His absence was a void, marking his entitlement. Sophie rambled on about her plans to start a lifestyle YouTube channel, how Ethan was researching a groundbreaking new game, and Mom nodded along as if she were listening to a business pitch. Their chatter was a performance, excluding me. I couldn't eat a single bite. All I could think about was the money I was pouring into this house every month, a house where a stranger was living like a queen while I was treated like the hired help. The injustice was a fire burning in my chest. From the least madamly, I Mom aside and said quietly, "Mom, I don't think this is right. I'm sending money to help you get by, not to support Sophie and Ethan's spending habits." My words were a warning seeking fairness. Mom's eyes narrowed, turning cold. "Don't be selfish, Emma. You already have everything. Ethan's still trying to find his way. Sophie is helping him a lot, and all you do is criticize." Her rebuke was a blade, cutting my plea. "I'm not criticizing. I'm warning you." I looked at her one last time. Because if this continues, there will come a time when I can't help anymore. My warning was a boundary, drawn in resolve. Her face hardening. "Then don't help. But don't complain when you have no family left to come home to." Her threat was a chain trying to bind me. I didn't respond. I just turned and walked away from the house that once felt like a home, now just a stage where I had no role. My exit was a liberation, freeing me from their grasp. One summer afternoon, after a long meeting with a client, my phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. "Can you bring those vanilla cookies again? Ethan's mom really liked them." The text was a spark, igniting my fury. "Ethan's mom." I stared at the text, my hands trembling with anger, not because of the cookies, but because of the way she spoke, as if I were the maid for a family I once belonged to. Her words were a wound, erasing my place, a family I was sending $2,000, 0 cents a month to support, while I was budgeting every dollar to pay off my apartment. The sacrifice was a chain binding me to their chaos. I went back to the old house that weekend. I didn't bring anything. My visit was a reckoning, empty-handed. I didn't announce my visit. I brought only one thing: the silence that was breaking inside me. Silence was my weapon, ready to strike. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open and stood, frozen in the middle of the living room. Robert's old sofa was gone, replaced by a brand new set of shiny white leather chairs next to a curved screen TV mounted on the wall. The luxury was a mockery. Funded by my sacrifice, I didn't respond. How did you get new furniture? And where did that TV come from? My questions were a probe, seeking the truth. Before she could answer, Sophie came down the stairs in a nightshirt so short it was almost embarrassing, her hair a mess but still smelling of expensive perfume. "Oh, you're here," she said, giving me a bored look. "I was going to text you. If you have time, can you clean out the storage room? Ethan wants to turn it into a gaming room." Her request was a slap, treating me as help. I stared at her. Robert's storage room. His memory was sacred, now defiled. Ethan's? Sophie shrugged. "It's Ethan's now. He's the man of the house, right? His mom gave him everything." Her words were a theft, claiming Robert's legacy. I stood there, stunned. "What are you talking about?" My question was a demand, seeking justice. Sophie laughed and pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket, waving it in my face like a toy. "Will and testament. It's official. The assets, the house, everything. Ethan's mom signed it all over to him last year. The will was a knife, cutting me out." I snatched the paper from her hand, my fingers trembling. My eyes skimmed over the words that tore through me like a knife. I, Laura J. Bennett, being of sound mind, hereby declare that I leave all my assets to my son, Ethan Bennett. The document was a betrayal, erasing my name. My name wasn't there. Not a single line, not a single dot acknowledging the daughter who had poured every last cent into keeping this house afloat. My absence was a wound, bleeding. "Truth, I know." She was avoiding my gaze. "Mom, is this real?" My voice cracked, seeking confirmation. "Did you really leave everything to Ethan?" Not a single word for me. My question was a plea, for her to see me. Mom set her glass down on the table. "Emma, don't make this a big deal. You're fine. You have a job, you have money. Ethan needs to be protected." Her dismissal was a fortress, shielding Ethan. I needed to be protected, I burst out, the day I was sick and lying alone in my room. Who took care of me? Robert, the day I was forced to clean the floor because my brother spilled something. Who spoke up for me? No one. I spent my entire youth working, earning money to help you, and this is how you repay me? My outburst was a fire, burning their lies. Mom finally looked up, her eyes no longer avoiding mine. "You really want the truth, Emma? I never loved you the way I love Evan. You don't understand him like I do. You were always strong, always capable, and Ethan needed me more." Her confession was a blade, severing our bond. Love isn't always fair, and I don't owe you equal parts. Her words were a verdict, condemning me. Those words slapped me harder than any physical blow. The slap was a wake-up, shattering my illusions. All those years I tried to understand her, to justify her favoritism as some twisted version of love. It was all just me lying to myself. The truth was a mirror, showing my self-deception. I don't remember how I left the house. I just remember the coldness of the door slamming behind me. The slam was a closure, sealing my exit, the sound of Sophie and Ethan laughing still echoing in my ears. Their laughter was a mockery, fading as I walked away. That night, I sat alone in my tiny apartment, opened my phone and logged into my banking app. The app was a battlefield where I'd reclaim my freedom. My finger hovered over the line that read automatic transfer, $2,000, 0 cents. I hit cancel. The action was a liberation, breaking my chains, no hesitation, no regret. My resolve was iron, unyielding. I once thought love could be bought with loyalty. That belief was a trap, now escaped. But today I realized some doors, once closed, should never be reopened. Closure was my victory, a door locked forever. The moment I clicked cancel recurring payment, a rush of fresh air swept through my apartment. The air was freedom, filling my lungs. As if for the first time in years, I was finally breathing on my own. Breathing was life, reclaimed at last. The first morning without the $2,000 0 cents deduction, I brewed a strong cup of coffee, opened my laptop, and started reviewing my personal financial plan. The plan was my map guiding my future. The money I once labeled as responsibility was now possibility. Possibility was a canvas ready for my dreams, the possibility to save for my own place, the possibility to invest in that independent consulting project I'd been dreaming about, and most importantly, the possibility to live a life unbound by guilt. Freedom was my treasure, earned through courage. But the peace didn't last long. Less than 2 hours after the bank confirmed the cancellation, my phone started vibrating nonstop. The calls were a siege, testing my resolve. Mom? Emma, I think there's a problem with the account. Can you check it for me? Her plea was a lure, trying to pull me back. An hour later. I don't see the money, did you forget? I need it to pay the electric bill by the afternoon. Her urgency was a chain seeking to bind me. If you really stop the payment, you're being selfish, Emma. I sacrificed everything for you, and now you're turning your back on me. Her accusation was a whip, lashing at my guilt. I didn't respond. I'd heard those lines too many times for too many years. Silence was my shield, deflecting her words. On day 2, Ethan texted, "You're ruining the whole family over a few bucks. Mom's been crying all morning. Are you proud of yourself?" His message was a dart aimed at my heart. On day 3, Sophie messaged me on Instagram. "Can't believe you're that kind of person. Johnny, the nickname she used for Ethan, is having a mental breakdown because of you. Try being a decent human." Her taunt was a mockery, but I was unmoved. I blocked Mom on iMessage, but then on WhatsApp, and finally Sophie on every social media platform I could think of. Blocking was a fortress guarding my peace, but they didn't stop. Emails started flooding my inbox, ranging from pitiful pleas, "We're about to lose the house," to guilt-tripping lines like, "I gave you my whole life, and now you're abandoning me." The emails were a storm, but I stood firm, and they even attached photos of overdue electric bills, water bills, and one of Ethan sitting in front of his gaming setup with a stressed look on his face, as if to say, look what you're doing to him." The photos were a manipulation, but I saw through them. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The absurdity was a mirror reflecting their desperation. One late night, I sat alone under the dim kitchen light, scrolling through each message, each guilt-ridden line. The messages were a weight. But I opened a drawer and pulled out an old letter, the last handwritten note from Robert. The letter was a treasure, holding his wisdom. In it, he wrote, "You don't owe anyone love. Real love doesn't require you to prove you deserve it." His words were a mantra, guiding my heart. I folded the letter and placed it back in the drawer beneath the paperwork for my apartment. The drawer was a vault, protecting what mattered. That was where I kept the things that truly mattered. And none of those emails deserved to be anywhere near them. Their pleas were shadows, unworthy of my light. I changed my email. I changed my phone number. I even unfollowed every relative still in touch with Mom on social media. The changes were a wall, severing their reach. From Dad's side messaged me with the same old blood is thicker than water lecture. But I responded just once. This blood isn't a free pass to be used forever. My response was a boundary, drawn in truth. After that, I didn't hear from them again, and I didn't care. Their silence was freedom, releasing me. Instead, I met with a financial advisor, opened a new savings account, and set a goal to buy a house within the next 18 months. The goal was a beacon guiding my future. I enrolled in a weekend art class, something I had dreamed of as a kid but was never encouraged to do. The class was a reclaimium of my childhood dreams. I reconnected with friends I had lost touch with while living the "I have to provide for my family" life. The connections were a bridge, rebuilding my community. Bit by bit, I took back control of my life. Control was my power, shaping my destiny. Sometimes on lazy afternoons, I'd walk past the supermarket where I used to take Mom shopping. The supermarket was a memory of burdens I'd shed. I still remembered those times she'd scold me for choosing expensive items, even though the next day she'd buy Ethan a new video game without a second thought. Her hypocrisy was a lesson, teaching me value. But this time, I walked in, picked up a bottle of Italian wine, a tub of my favorite ice cream, and didn't hear a single voice in my head telling me to think of others first. The choice was mine, free of guilt. I only thought of myself, and for the first time in my life, that felt like enough. Self was my center, whole and complete. I once feared that if I cut ties, I would lose everything. The fear was a shadow, now banished. But it turned out by cutting ties, I finally found myself. Finding myself was my victory, a life reclaimed. 5 months passed since the day I severed all contact with Mom and Ethan. The months were a journey, building my freedom. 5 months without waking up in the middle of the night to guilt-ridden messages. The absence was peace, soothing my soul. 5 months without my mind being tangled in the word of obligation. My mind was clear, focused on my dreams. I no longer checked my phone every morning, dreading a long, manipulative email from Sophie or a voicemail from Mom that was equal parts sobbing and rage. The silence was a gift, granting me rest, no more staring at my bank statement, swallowing the guilt that sat like a stone on my chest. The freedom was a lightness, lifting my spirit. No more pretending to be the dutiful daughter when no one really saw me. The pretense was gone, replaced by truth. Instead, every morning I woke up in a small 4th-floor apartment with sunlight filtering through cream curtains, casting warm glows over the paintings I'd hung on the walls. The apartment was my sanctuary, reflecting my soul. Vibrant colors I never dared to bring into my life before. This apartment was mine, bought with my own money, no loans, no shared names on the deed. The deed was my triumph, marking my independence. No other Bennett was listed alongside me. My name stood alone, a testament to my strength. I still worked at the same consulting firm, but I'd been promoted to team lead. The promotion was a crown, honoring my growth. It was the result of a presentation I gave to the executive board, where I not only talked about financial strategies, but also shared the story of a woman who learned to say no just in time to save herself from drowning. The story was my legacy, inspiring others. With this presentation, a younger female colleague pulled me aside in the hallway and said, "Emma, you just gave me the courage to do the same with my mother-in-law." Her words were a spark, igniting my purpose. I didn't say anything, just nodded, but inside it felt like a small light had started to shine. The light was hope, shared with another. The money that used to be deducted every month now sat safely in an investment fund. The fund was my future, growing with my dreams, not to show off, but to prove to myself I would never let anyone else decide my life for me again. The proof was my power, unyielding. One Saturday afternoon, while strolling through Beacon Hill, I noticed a handwritten "Help Wanted" sign taped to the window of an old cafe. The sign was a memory, echoing my past. The scrolled words read, "Looking for part-time staff, hard-working, friendly, good listener." The words were a mirror reflecting my childhood. I had no intention of applying, but I stood there reading every word. Then I laughed, not because I needed the job, but because I used to be the only kid in my house who knew how to listen. The only one who diligently cleaned up everyone else's messes, and the only one who never got called friendly just because I dared to speak the truth. The laughter was freedom, releasing my pain. Or is Mom okay? Or am I being too cruel? Anymore. Not because I didn't care at all, but because I finally understood. Understanding was my clarity, guiding my peace. If I kept holding on to that lifeline to the past, I'd never have a hand free to build my future. The lifeline was a chain, now broken. Sleep came easier. No nightmares, no jolting awake in the middle of the night. Sleep was a gift, restoring my strength. And each morning when I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was a large mirror hanging across from my bed, reflecting me whole, unbroken, nothing missing, nothing extra. The mirror was my truth, showing my worth. The fear was a shadow, now banished. But it turned out by stopping, I was able to reclaim the part of me that had been taken away. Reclaiming was my victory, a self restored. One late afternoon, on my way to a friend's birthday party, I passed by the old neighborhood and saw Mom standing outside a convenience store. Her presence was a ghost, stirring my past. She looked older, tired eyes, slumped shoulders. Her weariness was a mirror, reflecting their decline. I stopped at the intersection, my hands gripping the steering wheel. The grip was a battle between heart and resolve. A part of me wanted to get out, to ask her how she was. But then I saw Sophie standing beside her, holding a bag of chips, laughing like she hadn't a care in the world. Sophie's laughter was a reminder of their unchanged ways. And Ethan was in the parking lot shouting into his phone, just as loud and entitled as always. His voice was a kuh of the chaos I'd left. I took a deep breath, flipped my turn signal, and made a left, driving away in the opposite direction. The turn was a choice toward my peace, not because I hated them, but because finally I had learned how to protect my own peace. Peace was my treasure, fiercely guarded. And that peace no one could take from me unless I allowed it. My control was my power, unyielding. Their problems were no longer my problems. Their burdens were theirs, not mine. My story isn't about anger or revenge. It's about reclaiming self-worth after years of being overlooked and exploited by the very people who were supposed to love me most. It's a journey from shadow to light, reclaiming my value. I once thought that family meant unconditional sacrifice, until I realized love without respect is just another form of toxic control. Respect was my boundary, defining true love. Now, I live a life of my own choosing. No invisible burdens, no silencing voices. Freedom is my canvas, painted with my choices, and most importantly, I no longer feel guilty for choosing myself. Guilt was a chain, now broken. What do you think about Emma's choice? Was she too harsh, or was it the only way for her to truly find herself again? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more compelling family stories. Emma's story is a beacon, inspiring us to choose ourselves. Emma's journey from being erased in her family to reclaiming her worth shows the pain of being overlooked, yet it glows with the strength of self-discovery. Many know the ache of being sidelined, yet rise to claim their value. Your struggles, like hers, are real and powerful. If you've fought to be seen or broken free from toxic ties, you're not alone. Share your story below or with a trusted friend. Your voice can light the way for others. Let's build a community where empathy heals, where pain fuels growth. What's your journey? Speak it. We're listening.